Hello! So today we are going to be talking about Natural Druidry by Kristoffer Hughes. This is the best angle for the reflection, so we're just gonna roll with it. It's not perfect, but it's a very shiny cover. So this book came from my husband's collection. He bought it because he was at one point kind of interested in Druidry a little bit. I've never been interested in it that much, and so with that in mind, I don't know how well it covers the topic. Because again, I don't really care to research too much into Druidry. It's not something I care about. With that said, as somebody who doesn't know anything about this book was not that helpful. I would not say this is a beginner book. Like, you need to know a little bit of background. Like, truly, this is an intermediate book-ish. The problem is the author, it's very apparent, didn't have a clear focus of what this book was supposed to be. And that is a big problem when you sit down to write a book. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, you need to have a very specific way that you're planning to write that book. Who is your intended audience? I don't know who his is, because it's not beginners. He doesn't explain things enough for a beginner. But I don't know that it's for an advanced either. I'm leaning towards it's intermediate. But he also says that it's not a how-to book directly. He says that it's not. He also kind of mentions that it's kind of a memoir-ish, but the problem with that is that it's also not, because he's explaining a lot and not going off of his experience and putting us into his shoes, basically. We don't have that a lot either. It just ends up feeling like you read stuff, but nothing happened, and it just was like, why did this exist? Because even the exercises, they aren't explained well, first of all. Like, the organization of this book, I don't like. When you have an exercise that requires items, formatting-wise, this should have been set up differently. I don't know what the publishing house was thinking with this. It rambles endlessly, page after page, and a lot of times he goes on these tangents that have, like, next to nothing to do with what he was just talking about, and it's just like, where was the editor in this? Now, if this was self-published, I would have way lower standards because having a professional editor is really hard to come across when you are first starting off as an author and trying to deal with all of this stuff. 100%. If it's your first book and you're self-published, even your first few, way less standards. This was through a publishing house. He had editors. I don't know what happened. Like, the way most books are organized, especially in paganism, they have a lot more organization. They really make you stick to the point when you have, like, you have a chapter and then you have subsections in the chapter and you stay focused. He didn't. And so this book was really just, I don't know who the intended audience is for. I don't think it's for beginners because he draws from a lot of really random places that I think you would need to do more research on. Because he admits he has, like, one particular person that he uses as, like, his main source. And he constantly is like, well, I don't know if it's, like, actually researched or if this dude made it up. And he quotes a lot of stuff and tells you to do a lot of exercises that a very brand new person to any kind of paganism would be overwhelmed and not know. Such as, there was one pretty early on that he tells you to do, like, a ritual bath and to use herbs or oils and gives zero warning about using essential oils in a bath. Such as, you know, diluting it. Making sure you do a test spot on your skin of, like, your arm before you do that and, you know, get into the bath and then you have hives or something as you have a reaction. Like, just stuff like that. He just doesn't explain it for a beginner. And he says it's not a how-to book, so I get it, but why are you including it then? And it, in a way, it reminds me of, like, probably an earlier draft of the, I think it was, like, Elemental Witchcraft, a Weird Woman's Book of Shadows or something like that book I read back in September. It kind of was like that because it is a lot of his experience, but again, he also is, like, trying to explain stuff, but not well. It left me confused. Like, I don't know these myths. He's not explaining them well and how they interact at all. And the tangents he goes down, it just feels misplaced. That said, I think if it's a topic that you're interested in and you know some things about it and you have some baseline of a foundation of meditation and just, like, overall just, like, paganism, Wicca, witchcraft, whatever, the beginner books that warn you about stuff like using essential oils in baths, how to visualize, how to do like mental exercises and cleansing your space and setting up an altar. A lot of those beginner stuff, he just kind of assumes that you know it, which isn't very helpful. If you're intermediate, or at the very least you know these topics, you'd probably be fine, and it would probably mean a lot more if you knew the background of this stuff. For the beginner and the person who doesn't know Druidry very well, I don't think this is the book to grab right away. It is interesting, and I think it would be good, again, at like an intermediate level of reading to like start to be like, oh, well, what does this person do versus this person, and start to compare how they look at the myths and the stories and stuff. Because I could see the elements of witchcraft throughout there, the Wheel of the Year, but he gives it different names, which I really feel like needs to be called into question. Pretty much everyone has agreed the Wheel of the Year that we know today is not ancient. It's based off of a lot of random holidays and fit to, you know, kind of make a wheel that works for us now. But nobody anywhere, I'm pretty sure, celebrated all of them. And he didn't really make that a big point. So anyways, those are my thoughts on this book. I would love to hear from Druids if this book is more helpful, especially if you know some background on it. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.